Greetings, sports fans. ASMR. Sports back with a little bit of a throwback, a good old classic. Well, nothing quite reminds me of the magic of a coming baseball card season. And for those of you who don't know, the 2025 Topps Series 1 baseball card set, also known as the flagship set of baseball cards each year, is almost upon us. I believe February 12th is when that comes out, so just a few days from now, a couple of days, we will have the next main Topps baseball card set. Something of a milestone for every baseball card collector each year. And when I think of when I was a kid, and the time for the new Topps baseball card set was upon us, it was always kind of a time of great wonder and joy, because back then you really didn't know what the set was going to look like, really. You might not have even seen the design, because, we didn't have the internet, and you relied on publications like Beckett Baseball Card magazine to give you any kind of news. So it was also, I have to say, just more, momentous, like what the Topps set looks like each year, because, it was always the biggest brand in sports cards. And even though there were competitors, the significance of the new Topps design each year was much more important thing, because these days there's, 50 different baseball sets each year, at least. I don't know, maybe that's exaggerating, but that's probably not. So, any one individual set is not that important. But back then, there was only one Topps set each year. And you better believe people cared about it a lot, as did I. So, I was thinking of all this and thinking about how really, like 1988 was one of the first years. I don't think it was quite the first year, because I remember getting a box of 87 Topps. But I feel like I got that actually. It's funny, I don't know when exactly I got that. I feel like I got that for Christmas, but it couldn't have been Christmas of 86. Since it wouldn't have been out by then. But if it was Christmas of 87, it wouldn't have really been new at all. It would have been, kind of after the end of the season. So I can't really remember when I got that box. But I do remember when 1988 rolled around. My beloved mother, God rest her soul, drove my or something. We'll say 10. My 10-year-old bought to the card shop, in the days right after this came out, maybe the day of, and I got a box of this stuff, and it was like $15, and that's no small chunk of change for a kid back then, at least, in my socioeconomic bracket at that time. That was a pretty huge deal, and I remember, pretty sure I was like one of the first kids to have a whole box of that stuff. And I got to see all the glorious cards when I was opening those packs, so I want to relive the glory a little bit here today and open some 88 Topps. These are actually cello packs, and I'm pretty sure I didn't buy a single one of these at any point in that time, but I happen to have gotten these in a collection of packs that I got like for super cheap. I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. I bought just like kind of like a mystery box of like junk arrow wax, and there was a bunch of these in there and some other stuff too. So I have these. I also have wax packs somewhere, and I have wax boxes as well. So plenty of 88 Topps to go around. But let's crack in. And then I want to look up, like, if we get any cards that I think, would have been hits back then. I want to look them up in this price guide, and unfortunately the closest price guide I could find to 1988 was the September 89 one. So that was kind of a bummer. I was hoping to get some from 1988. I got an 86, and I got this 89. I don't think I have anything in between. So, alright, well, here's our delicious piece of petrified bubblegum stuck to our, actually it's not really stuck that much, although it did leave a really nice little mark there. Stuck to our collector's edition glossy All-Stars and Hot Prospects baseball cards order form here. So, yeah, you could order, they did this like, man, I feel like they did this from about 1982, maybe 81 onward, where basically you could order these glossy star and like rookie cards, and I feel like these cards were also available. I want to say like maybe they were in rack packs, but I feel like I've seen a lot of these cards, and I don't know if that's just because they like printed a lot of them and probably people didn't order them. I never even thought about ordering them when I was a kid. So maybe they had a ton of inventory and they just ended up selling it, to dealers and stuff, and then just ended up selling them off, to customers, and that's how they ended up, in places where I would see them, at dealer booths or I don't know where else. But anyways, they would come in little, kind of like, groups, little lots here, like six different lots. And there's a mix of quote-unquote hot prospects and all-stars. Here's Don Mattingly. Let's see who the prospects are. Mike Dunn, a pitcher for the Pirates. Mike Greenwell, who was a big name. And that's it. So yeah, curious if anybody ever ordered these things. There's also the entry for the annual contest that they ran to win a trip to the, in this case, spring training. I feel like sometimes it was the World Series. That was the one, I feel like, for the wax packs, maybe, or I don't know. Maybe they just changed it starting in whatever, some year. Alright, well, let's do it. Let's slow roll this mofo. at each of these cards up close. So Brooke Jacoby was a pretty good slugger for the Indians. I would call him kind of like a minor star back in the day. A really good season there in '87 with 32 home runs and 300 average. I mean, that's a dang good year right there. So I remember like his rookie card certainly would be worth a couple bucks back in this time, but he sort of fizzled, I think, after the kind of late '80s, and was not somebody that ended up being, a major star. Maybe if you're an Indians fan, you have a kind of a. There's a lot of guys like on the Twins that I think, for me, they seem like pretty big stars because they were like hugely important to the Twins, and that was the team that I followed as a kid. They also won a couple World Series there in the late '80s, early '90s. So like guys like Gary Gaetti, Kent Herbeck. I mean, Kent Herbeck was actually pretty dang good. He was not a Hall of Famer, but he had some really good years, and he would probably be considered, borderline star by most people who were observers of baseball in that time frame. But for me, he was like, the second best offensive player on the Twins after Hall of Famer Kirby Puckett. So he's like a pretty big name. His cards were always popular around here. It's kind of a big deal. There's other guys like, Dan Gladden, was a big star on the '87 Twins when they won the World Series. So his stuff was definitely valuable around here for a little while, leading up to and shortly after that World Series victory. So I feel like Brooke Jacoby was maybe one of those guys for the Indians. And there's lots of guys like that, who, I mean, if you're like a Blue Jays fan, I mean, I don't know, George Bell, Jesse Barfield come to mind. And those guys were kind of, like for fans of those teams, those guys were like big mega stars during the, that time frame of late '80s, early '90s. But ultimately they, didn't put together, none of these guys put together like Hall of Fame type careers or like sort of mega star type careers. Alright, Kevin Gross, we won't really talk about the pitchers, let's be real. Bob Ojeda, another pitcher. Interestingly, I've never noticed this, he seems to be pitching with like what appears to be a first baseman's mitt, which is kind of funny because I mean, that just may be an optical illusion. It's not actually like like a partial circle like it would be you'd see on a first baseman's mitt. You may just have it like sort of tucked kind of in a way that makes it look like a semicircle, but it does kind of look like a first baseman's mitt. But when I was a kid, like my first baseball glove that I ever got was from my mom. And it was one of those like plastic ones with our like fake leather. And it was, it was pretty small. So it was kind of like more of like a toy almost. And I did probably use that when I just first started playing, when I was like 9 or something, 10 years old. But I quickly sort of realized it wasn't like a real, legit player's glove, if that makes sense. So I think actually what happened, I think like I was at a garage sale. My mom used to love to go to garage sales, and I was happy to go with because you never knew when you might run into some baseball cards, going to these garage sales in the late '80s, or a bunch of other stuff that I found pretty interesting. And we didn't have much money, so if I only had a few bucks to my name, which is probably true of most of my childhood, I could make that go a lot further at a garage sale than anywhere else. So anyways, we'd go to the garage sales, and I found at one of these garage sales a well-used first baseman's mitt, that was a pretty solid. It was like an off-brand. It wasn't like a Wilson or something. It was like gosh, I want to say it was like a Champion or something. But it wasn't one of the sort of usual brands. But it was really broken in well, and it was a legit, like leather glove that was pretty solid, at least compared to my glove that I had. But it was a first baseman's mitt, and I didn't play first base, but I really liked it. It was very comfortable, so we bought it. It was probably like $1 or something, and I used that glove for like a lot of my baseball career. Man, I'm trying to think like if I actually may not have had another glove during the entirety of my like baseball. Oh no, I did get a glove by the time I was like maybe, I don't know, 12 or 13. I got like an infielder's glove that was like half decent by my standards today, where I pretty much only would use like an A2000 or equivalent glove. Not that I really play baseball anymore, but I've played baseball as an adult, and I had, nice pro model gloves. But yeah, it was it was not a great glove, but it was at least not a first baseman's glove that I ended up having kind of when I got a little bit older. So anyways, that's my story about first baseman's gloves. Alright, so we have our first All-Star rookie in the beautiful All-Star Rookie Cup logo that, boy, as a kid, by the way, I have to say these cards are remarkably like sharp. I mean, this thing is like dead centered, and I'll take it away from and the corners are like crispy as all get out. Actually, the card is like a little bit kind of warped, I think, because of like moisture that's gotten into it over the years. But I'm kind of shocked at how nice and clean these look. Anyway, so there's Devon White. He was really good, kind of power, and one of these like sort of 30-30 threat guys with power and speed together, sort of like an Eric Davis type player, but he was never nearly as good as Eric Davis. But I remember he was a very respected prospect when he came up, and his cards were definitely worth $1 or $2. We'll see what they're looking like in this price guide. Probably down a bit from their highs, but you see in '87 he had 24 home runs. He had 32 stolen bases, and that was he did have a full season. About 639 at bats. So I mean that's pretty dang good run for a rookie. Kind of interesting. He's one of these guys that had like a little cup of tea, cup of coffee up in the bigs in '85 for 7 at bats, and then back to the minors, and then back up for another kind of cup of coffee in '86, and then finally got a full year in '87. So kind of crazy. All right, so we'll look up Devon White. That would have been a pretty sweet pull back in '88, I think. All right, Brad Havens, another pitcher. Gary Pettis had a pretty long career, I think, because he was rookie in '82. I can't remember how long this guy played, but I feel like he was around for quite some time. But I think he was kind of a stolen base and defensive specialist sort of player, never hitting really much more than 250 for most of his career. Rick Manning, the pitcher. Tim Laudner. Oh wow, look at this. Look at these studs. So these cards from '88, would have photos from the '87 season, and that was the year that the Twins won their first World Series. And if you grew up as I did in the upper Midwest here, I live in Fargo, North Dakota, and that's where I grew up. Even though I lived in Boston for about 15 years. At one point in my life after I went to school and then worked for many years out there, I returned home. So I live in Twins country now. I'm not really a big Twins fan. The problem with the Twins is they always run into the Yankees like in the first round of the playoffs. So I would have to not be able to, root for them to do very well. So if ever they are Yankees. I probably would want them to win over, anybody else in the AL. But it just so happens the Central has always got like kind of the weakest teams, and so their teams end up playing the best teams, which are often the AL East teams where the Yankees play, and then they sort of run into each other early in the playoff schedule, and usually the Twins go away very quickly when they end up facing the Yankees, often like in those one-game playoff situations or in the best of 5 series. Anyway, so yeah, both these guys, would have been on this '87 team, and Tom Bernansky in particular is sort of another one of those guys where, like, if you grew up in Twins country, I mean, this guy was like a friggin' legend during that time. I mean, he was probably one of the top 3-4 guys on the team offensively, and yeah, he was a big name. You definitely wanted to have some Bruno cards in your collection around here, but elsewhere people were probably like, Tom who? What? Okay, Gerald Perry, he was rookie in like 84, he was a rookie. But I feel like he has a Don Russ rated rookie in 84, which was like the first year they did rated rookies. I can sort of see that in my mind's eye, but it might be hallucination. Bob Rogers manager card. Chuck Finley, pretty solid pitcher for a good number of years there in this late 80s time frame. At this point, he really hadn't done a whole lot in the bigs, just a couple of seasons there with under 100 innings. Gene Garber looks like he was a submariner. Kind of interesting because the guy I think of when I think of submarine pitchers in the 80s is Dan Quisenberry, who also was a longtime Royal, now deceased. Not Gene Garber, but he may be deceased, I don't know, but Quisenberry is definitely deceased. I probably mentioned this before, but a friend of mine who's still somebody I keep in touch with, but he was like one of my main kind of baseball card collecting buddies as a kid, and his favorite player was Dan Quisenberry. All right, there's Tony La Russa, longtime manager for the very successful A's of the 1980s and early 90s, and later then a Cardinals manager, and then White Sox as well, which is like the first team he managed. He's not going to say here, but I feel like when he first got into managing, he was like a White Sox manager for like a short stint, and that was like in the, I don't know, 70s or 80s or something, like a long time ago. And then like, I think it was like the, I don't know, 2000s or something, he went to the White Sox. I don't know, I might be making that up, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Rob Deere, big home run hitter. 33 home runs in 86. 87, he had 28. And let's see his strikeouts. Yeah, led the league in strikeouts in 87, so he's one of those guys. One of those Steve Balboni types. Our first All-Star card is Juan Samuel. Not a Hall of Famer, and not really, I wouldn't say a star, but definitely like a minor star. And a good average hitter. Tom Candiotti. There's Mike Scioscia, who had more of a career as a manager than a player, even though he did have quite a few years in the bigs, as kind of a, sort of an average catcher, nothing too fancy. Steve Ontiveros, pitcher. There's Cal Ripken Sr., of course, the dad of Cal Ripken Jr. So in this year, he was managing, he managed both of his sons, Cal Ripken Jr. Hall of Famer Iron Man player who set the all-time record for most consecutive games played. And Bill Ripken, his other son, who is famous for having a card in 1989 Fleer Baseball where it says fuckface on the knob of his bat, and all manner of controversy came from that. So Nick Saski, I remember, I feel like he was one of these guys that had like one or two just breakout crazy years where he just went absolutely nuts and hit like 40 home runs. It might have been after this card because I don't see anything too crazy in the home run total, but I feel like I remember he had one year that was just like absolutely nuts. And then a lot of his cards, went up quite precipitously in value for a period of time because of that. Like Howard Johnson of the Mets was another guy like that. Kevin Mitchell, another one. It's kind of crazy. There's these guys that they're around for a few years. You don't really hear anything about them, and then suddenly they have a breakout year. Like, back then their cards, especially their rookie cards, went crazy in value. Alright, so there's Len Dykstra. If you're a Howard Stern fan like I am, you probably know some interesting things about Len Dykstra, who appears on that show in the last few years and is quite a character. Oh, this is a fun one because there was an error of this card that I think has maybe a little value, and we'll actually look this one up because I think it'll be noted in here. But the error, I believe, was that the Padres was in white, and it was quite a bit rarer than this Padres in blue, which is, I think, the corrected version. And yeah, that was kind of a big deal back then. Alright, well, there's a cool one. Paul O'Neill, famous Yankee broadcaster. By the way, I'm only going to do one pack of these because I'm taking a long time, which is kind of the intent. I mean, I've been talking lately about, finding content, finding ideas for content, and I mean, this pack of cards, which cost me about probably 10 cents, because I got it in that, bundle, that mystery bundle, and it was real cheap. If I can do a video and tell you guys lots of cool stuff about, kind of growing up with these cards and a lot of the meanings and stuff of these players and these cards, I'm a pretty happy camper. So anyways, back to this. So Paul O'Neill, of course, spent a good number of years with the New York Yankees when they were having their, wild success of the late 90s, early 2000s. So he is a cherished member of the, the Yankee dynasty of that era that won so many World Series. And he was also a very, very good player. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he's definitely got some good numbers. And he was, really, this is pretty early in his career. So there's really nothing on here that's particularly impressive, but he's one of these guys that was just kind of a gamer, and he gave a lot of effort, and he cared very much about winning, as evidenced by a lot of the sort of conversations he has as a broadcaster. So for Yankee fans, a very cherished member of the dynasty teams of the late 90s, early 2000s. Alright, there's Rob Murphy, pitcher for the Reds. Jeff Reardon, another kind of big name for the Twins in their World Series run. Let's see what he did in 87. So 6 and, or does that say 8 and 8? Yeah, 8 and 8, 4.48 ERA. So nothing too impressive, but he was a solid kind of pitcher in that rotation. Got to the World Series. Actually, I feel like he I don't know if he was a starter or reliever. I mean, he was 8-8, but he could have been, been a reliever or something. A handful of decisions. Oh, look, that is from Dalton, Mass. I didn't know that. All right, Tim Burke. And our last card is going to be very damaged, gum damaged, Gus Polidor. All right, so there's a pack. These are 28 cards in these packs. Now we've got 2 cards that I want to look up in this price guide to kind of see in this era what they would have gone for. All right, so there you go. 88 Topps is right here. I'll look up Devon White here, 192. Oh man, he was not worth much back then. 15 cents it says right there. So, kind of shocked to see David Cohn at $1, but I remember he was like sort of a big name prospect back in the late 80s when he came up. All right, so yeah, no significant value with that one, at least at this point in September of '89. Let's look up the, I think, corrected version of this card. I want to see what the error goes for. So 778. All right, so there you go. Get over here. So the error card is $8. Corrected, which is this one, is 20 cents. So you may say, oh, well, that's not a very valuable card, but at $8, that was by far the most valuable card in the set. I want to find like the next most valuable card, so you can have kind of a baseline. But basically, I'm seeing a lot of $1.25 cards, like Mike Greenwell. Jose Canseco was probably the most valuable card at $1.50. Second year card for him. Well, second Topps card. Yeah, so $1.50 was the most valuable non-error card, and that error was worth $8. So that actually is, pretty significant value. I think all of the '89 sets should be in here. Yeah. I want to see if '89 Upper Deck is in here, because that was kind of a crazy set back then. Yeah, so there it is. There's the Dale Murphy reverse negative card. Was $100 back then. Just crazy amount of value. The Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, famous card from Upper Deck, was $10 back then. It's actually worth more now. Though very condition sensitive. So, but I think you can probably get, $10 for a card that is in any kind of reasonably good condition. And that was it. And they had the Upper Deck Extended, which had some really cool cards in it at the time. It was got a ton of rookie cards in it. Tom Gordon, Jim Abbott was the big one, $5. Ozzie Canseco, his identical twin brother of Jose Canseco. I wonder if that guy's even alive these days. But anyways, yeah, probably could go through this whole back end and find a ton of interesting stuff to talk about. But that's today's little dose of the past there, a little sprinkle of 1988 in your life. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I had actually a lot of fun going through that, and just remembering those cards, remembering how special a new Topps set was back then. And I'm definitely gonna find some 2025 Topps when that comes out, because I want to open those packs when I haven't seen almost any of the cards. I've seen a handful of the cards, just in advertising and stuff, so I know what the design looks like, but still to see cards from a Topps flagship set for the first time. And all the ones with the Rookie Cup and the Future Stars logo and stuff like that is still pretty fun for me. So I will try to find some of that stuff here locally as soon as it comes out. Maybe I have to hit the local hobby shop and grab some products there. But that's what we've got for today, folks. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you next time.